Wilden, were you saying something?
Okay,
You, I can't hear a single thing you're saying.
You sound like you're in a
I,
tunnel.
Yeah.
I, I understood
can
what you
you hear
meant,
me
but
now?
Yeah. There you go.
yes,
Yep.
Can you hear me now? God damn it.
I,
I don't know why that what is happening ever since that stupid fucking spacebar thing.
Blame the space bar.
Ever since that thing came up and I tried it once, it's screwed with my sound. Sorry, go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BTB Movie Club podcast. My name is Dan Sears. We hope you enjoyed today's movie discussion. Thanks for listening.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BTB Movie Club. My name is Tim Larson. We're here to discuss movie number 196. Movie number 200 is right around the corner. This is Dan Sears' pick. It is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest from 1975. An outstanding classic. Dan, the show is yours. Take it away, good man.
All right. Yeah, I figured this is a movie that if you have a movie club that you need to see, since it's one of only three movies to win all the Academy Awards, the Big Five, the Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Screenplay, and Best Director. So it won all those, and of course, Milos Forman was the director. He also directed Amadeus that we saw in our club. So, well, let's get going here then. And Brian, so what did you think of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
I'd seen it once before, and wow, a long time ago, and um, enjoyed it. The watching it again, brought back some of the stuff, some of the memories of watching it. Um, you know, there's so many easy things you could say about the movie. Nicholson was great, the directing was great, the writing, it's easy. Obviously, if it wins that many Academy Awards, um, to try and pick everything apart about it, for a movie discussion, that it's not hard to do. I guess I would say. I think everybody's going to have plenty to talk about for this movie. The um, the strangeness of a hospital that kind of easy to get out of or into. The idea that the nurse who's kind of power hungry, it felt like to me Nurse Ratched was a power hungry, not so nice nurse that was not really caring about the mental health of the people that she should be caring about the most. She's running groups and kind of playing mental games with them. uh Now, did she do it with the Murphy character because she felt he probably was a malingerer and shouldn't have been there? And when they had the opportunity to send him back, she was the one who stepped up and was like, "Oh, let's keep him here," so she could continue to mess with him. That's kind of the take I took on the character. Um, Watching him befriend these people and kind of um, in no way, shape, or form like a Patch Adams part of it when he was in this insane asylum with him. But he also, he was giving them confidence and uh, trying to work with the guys and make them better people, and, they, oh, don't talk to Chief. He's deaf. No, he just doesn't want to talk to you guys. So there were so many subplots and different stories with all the characters that were involved in it. Again, like I said, the writing just made it such a good movie. Uh, it was when you picked it, I was excited to watch it again. Like it's been a while, so I did enjoy reconnecting with this movie, and I didn't realize that Foreman did Amadeus also, so I looked that up, the other stuff that he's done. And actually, wasn't that your pick also, Dan?
Amadeus was, yes.
Yeah, well, staying in your wheelhouse, I like it. Uh,
Me
but
and Milos really tight.
yeah, well, it's. Did you get a credit in any of them? He's like my buddy Dan,
Executive producer, yeah.
assistant, associate executive producer.
Associate, yeah.
So, no, really good
to
pick.
the executive producer.
Really good pick. Did you know? I felt, and I have it on the whiteboard. You know, it's really about the setting. His mindset was, you know, I fight and fuck too much, and that's one way to live your life. And that gets you in jail and possibly in an insane asylum. So, yeah, really good pick. Enjoyed it, and good job.
And possibly lobotomized too. So
Yeah.
We
got
can
all
only
those
hope.
things. Yep.
Fingers
Um,
crossed.
Decade ain't over yet.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned the you know, ease of getting in and out. I don't know in real life if there's minimum security, mental institutions, maximum security, but in this movie, there's only 3 characters that were involuntary committed to this facility. You know, Jack Nicholson's character, Christopher Lloyd, and the chief. The rest of them were there voluntarily. So that could be, you know, one of the reasons that it was so easy to get in and out of. But
Good point.
yeah, I don't know real life though if that's, you know, like that or not.
Well, when I was in the mental institution,
that's what I was gonna get at
is
there.
that what-
Yeah.
no,
You got to have notes.
We're
for
not
that.
there. We're not. Yeah, we're not unloading that baggage tonight.
Too early to need a couple more drinks before we get into that.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I did connect with Trap, and he said that he has a fantasy football draft and he might be joining if time permits him. So we might be seeing Trap.
Oh.
Don't know.
Trap's take on this stuff. Good Lord.
And I thought you just said a fancy football draft. And I was like,
No.
wow, that Trap would be at a fancy football draft.
Like, do they draft in like bow ties and
Sounds-
like
you know.
tuxedos?
I
Sorry.
bid 7 shillings.
Sorry if I misspoke there. So Hilty, I always feel like you go last or, you know, next to last. So you're up now, Hilty.
Nice.
So I love this movie. It's really good. I mean, all the performances are outstanding, particularly Nicholson, who is rightfully lauded for this or praised for this performance. I don't think Louise Fletcher gets enough credit for what she does because, and rightfully so, everybody hates her in this
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
And you want to know who else hates her? She hates this performance. She did
Yeah.
not watch this for a long time after she was done performing this because she was so disturbed by her performance. She was just like, no, I can't watch it. I can't do it. She even tried different things to make Nurse Ratched more human, and it never worked because whether it's the way that it was shot or edited or just director's notes or whatever, everything that she did that like tried to make her human just didn't work out in some capacity, probably intentionally. But so there's that, and then also I was reading some kind of behind the scenes tidbits, and they she like she auditioned for like 6 months in order to get this role, and the director kept saying, you're almost there, but there's something just not right about it. But they saw something in her enough to where, like, keep coming back. Like, we want you to come back for another casting session. Which admittedly she was frustrated about, but she wanted the role that badly that she wanted to, keep trying to do this. And I'm sure that's partially why she doesn't have a problem being an asshole to the director or anything like that, because it's like you made me audition for this like for 6 months. So I'm sure that partially is some inspiration, but she she also, I read that she got very frustrated on set a couple of times because she saw that everybody else was having fun and she couldn't quote unquote have fun because she was the villain of the movie, and she wanted to prove to everybody that she was fun. So one day she just stripped off her dress, was sitting in her panties, be like, I can have fun too. See? So the 70s, right? Or the
Yep.
60s, different time. Um, it's interesting because reading how this was filmed, there were a couple things that were pretty unique about the filming of this. And one is that this movie was filmed almost in sequential order, which that never happens for a movie. They jump around from place to place and they film things kind of based on, scheduling, based on what's needed, different things like that. This movie is almost filmed entirely in sequential order. So that's interesting. And not very many scenes take one shot, but there's one scene in this movie that only took one shot. Can you take a guess which one that is? Ugh, just
The
Just
choking
trying to
scene.
just trying to help you out.
it's the final scene, the last scene of the movie, which makes sense that that would, be one scene to do that because you've got two performers kind of just at the height of their powers during that time, which the guy who plays Chief, he he's not even he wasn't even an actor. He was a park ranger and they were struggling to find um an indigenous person who was the right size for the role. So when they found him, they were like, you're our guy. So please be good at
He
performing.
didn't have many speaking parts, so didn't didn't have to worry about that.
That's true, but he still had to emote a little bit, or I just had to like be be around everybody else too. So um they filmed a lot of the they filmed a lot of the people or a lot of the cast members when they weren't filming or like actually like during shots, so they got like genuine reactions to things. So that's something that's kind of a no-no. Now you can't really do that. You need things like consent and releases and different things like that. So that's fun, I guess. And then there was a there was one thing that I read in particular that um there was a scene um where one of the guards gets jumped on and uh he gets a kiss from McMurphy and he that that the way that that was shot, they wanted one guard to for that to happen to, and it was all scripted, but they didn't think his reaction was enough, so they told McMurphy jump on the other guy, and then we want a genuine reaction from that, and the guy flipped out. He was so pissed. Um, I was a little shocked in some of the research to see how successful this movie was because for a movie during this time frame, um, it's it's a pretty long movie for the time frame. Plus, also, it's not really a what you would consider a conventional blockbuster movie, but the budget for this was, depending on where you look, was at minimum $3 million, and it grossed almost 160 or over $160 million, which that is a massive hit for a movie that doesn't have a lot of action, doesn't have, this is a drama straight through and through, and it's it goes to show that people will go to the movies if the movie is good of substance and has something to say versus, a lot of the shit that we get out there now. So, plus, I don't know, they don't make movies now that stay in the theaters more than like 4 or 5 months or anything like that. I was reading that there's a record that in Sweden this movie played from 1975 to 1987 somehow. Like,
Well,
wow, good for them. And this was something that I did know that this film is one of three films to win like your top five Oscars, which that never happens because it won Best Picture, Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Screenplay, whether it's adapted or original. And I think the last time that that happened was Silence of the Lambs, did it, and there's a lot of movies that came close, but to be in that rarefied air where your movie is a certified hit and super profitable, but also incredibly uh polished when it comes to awards prestige as well. So, um, great pick. I'm glad that we're finally talking about this, and we're, you know, I hope everybody at least is before this had seen it once, but if you haven't seen it once, then I'm glad that everybody's gotten to see it now, because this is a classic through and through. And it's hard to say, but is this Nicholson's best performance? It's
That's a
it's
good
it's a
question.
tough call
It,
because
it might be.
I think, Wilden, that
I'm a
is the
big
correct
fan of
answer.
I'm a big fan of his As Good as It Gets. I think
It's a great
though,
performance too.
That's a
yeah,
good performance
Udall
too, yeah.
character.
I'm gonna take Batman.
Batman's good. For
Yeah,
all the
like Batman's good. There are a lot of good Nicholson performances. So like you said, it is tough to stay. But this, I mean, it might be. I don't
it
know.
might be. It might be.
This movie's one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So that's
All right.
that's it.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Um, it's a subjective question, so who knows? But there's been 3 films that have won all 5 of those that Hilty was talking about. The third one is 1934's It Happened One Night, along with Silence of the Lambs in this one. The other thing Hilty was mentioning was that, shot in the sequential order. The only scene they didn't was the boating scene. They shot last.
And they they had a lot of trouble shooting that boating scene. A lot of people got sick
They got sick, yeah.
during that.
It took them like 8 days to shoot it.
Danny DeVito actually still doesn't like talking about it because of how sick he got because of it. So
Okay, all right. Thanks for your comments. Mike Walden, you're up next.
all right. So this is the first time I've seen this. This is one of those movies that I kind of always knew like I need to see this. I just never really, made time to do so. Uh, and I'm glad I did. This is great. Um, I mean, all the actors in this, which what a cast, man. I mean,
Right.
yeah, everybody that starred was great, but like look at a lot of the side characters. Danny DeVito is a supporting character. Christopher Lloyd is a supporting character. William Redfield, like it just, I mean, and it's not just like, oh, there's a bunch of big names in it. They all are fantastic. Like I really like the movie Ocean's 11, and Ocean's 11 has a lot of star power and it's fun, but a lot of those, actors are just kind of playing themselves in certain ways. Which isn't to rag on the movie. Again, love that movie, but this is something where like all these actors had actual characters. I mean, whether it was staff at the hospital or one of the patients, they actually had to get into character, and I felt like everybody knocked it out of the park. Um, yeah, Nurse Ratchet was just almost a little sinister. Kind of early on, I wrote down a note. I was like, this nurse, I think she resents these patients. And that was really early in the movie and not really I didn't know that Nurse Ratched had the reputation. Obviously she does for good reason. But yeah, I wrote that pretty early on. Like, I think she resents them. And well, Um, a couple of fun notes. I love when they're on the boat and that guy approaches him like, "Hey, you shouldn't be on that boat," and he's just introducing everybody as doctor, like, this is doctor this is doctor that, and then he gets to Harding and he still calls him Mr. Harding just to give him that little dig because Harding's been such a dick to him. Absolutely love that. Um, eh,
Well, if I can interrupt for just a second. When he introduces each one of them, they kind of like they stand up a little taller and they all look the part. Like those crazy bastards look like they're doctors when it's just it's a great turn on that scene. Love that.
Yeah, and then when he says Mr. Harding, you see Harding kind of look up at him like, ugh, like kind of roll his eyes. It's just great. So uh fun thing about that scene, um, or just when they actually go to and from the bridge, that was filmed in Depot Bay, Oregon, right on the coast of Oregon. Um, a decade ago, I went on a big trip to Arizona, Portland, and Seattle. And when I was in Arizona, reconnected with some family there. One of my mom's cousins was asking, like, hey, what days are you going to be in Portland? And after I told him, he went, well, I have a place like on the coast of Oregon. I'm going to be there that last weekend. Do you want to come and spend the weekend on the ocean? I was like, yeah. So I got to go and like stay in his little place there, and that was in Depot Bay. So like we went and we were standing on the bridge, and he kind of pointed that out. It's like, yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but that little area right there is where they filmed, one of the big scenes
That's
on a
cool.
boat. And I mean, I carried that for probably 11 years without actually having seen the movie. And so knowing that we were watching this, I was kind of excited to see it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's, I don't know. It was just a cool little connection for me. Depot Bay is a gorgeous little town. But yeah, not a ton. I thought when he's doing the initial interview, I'm like, why are you in here? And he's saying, I fight and I fuck too much. The part where he's talking about like the girl that was too young, it was like, oh, this is a little uncomfortable. Um, outside of that, I nothing was too dated, I guess. I don't know. Not that that's dated, but you know what I mean. Um, and then the only other thing I wrote was so that's how Jack got the Joker role. Like kind of towards the beginning, there's a point when a bunch of people surround him and he just starts laughing
He's doing
maniacally,
some
and I went,
boo-hoos. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
okay, yeah, I see why they went to him about this. Um, yeah, this is a lot of fun. I This is one I will watch again at some point. I can see why it's one of the all-time greats. Great pick. Thanks. Oh, there are a lot of cultural references in this too. I mean, like from this, I think there's like a Simpsons moment where they have like a chief-like character and he picks something up and throws it out the window, and I never got that until I was watching this movie. And that when they had the sink, I was like, Chief's gonna be the one to lift that and throw it out the window. I know it, but it was still really cool. So, anyways, yeah, great pick, Dan.
All right. Glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, they filmed it in that Oregon area there at an actual mental institution that had patients
Oh,
in it.
really?
Yeah.
Oregon State Hospital.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Well, Tim, keep on going. You're up next.
Yeah, I love this movie. Let's talk about the title. How great of a title is this? The first time I watched it, the whole time I'm thinking it's McMurphy that's the one who flew over the cuckoo's nest, right? He's using the situation to get out of being in jail, but I've always landed on the chief is the one that hoodwinked everybody and got away with it and gets to go to Canada and stuff. The ensemble-ness of this cast is wonderful. Um, you guys are right on with Nurse Ratched. I mean, how many times have you heard somebody talk about Nurse Ratched outside of this movie, like just as a reference? Oh, thanks, Nurse Ratched. Like this is an iconic character, and she's just going toe to toe with Jack Nicholson. Who gets to do that in a movie? Like Hilty's right. She's a little scarred from doing this movie, but what a performance. But for me, it's Brad Dourif. Holy shit, what a performance. That guy never gives a half-ass performance in anything he does, and God, he just killed it.
He was
Really
robbed,
love that character.
robbed of the Oscar. Robbed.
Yeah, I mean,
Should have been a
man,
clean sweep, Dan.
he just
Yeah.
the stutter, God, the puppy dog eyes that he was looking at the guys he looked up to. I just can't. I'm every time I see it, I'm blown away by his performance in particular. I love the two guys, Vincent Schiavelli and Michael Berryman. How did they get both of these guys in the same movie? I mean, those guys have been in so many movies because of their look, and how the casting director got all these people together, I have no idea. They deserve the, award of the century for that cast. But they did such a great job of allowing everyone's personality to shine. Like Cheswick, he's a monster in this movie. He's so lovable, and when he freaks out over the cigarettes, it's like you're watching it and you're like, oh, this isn't just we're having fun. And you kind of see it through McMurphy's eyes the whole time. Like I'm getting away with this. I'm not in jail. And then that's some real shit when he has that meltdown. I mean, you see the guys in the back dancing and and can't, kind of catatonic and whatever. But that's the one moment where you're like, hey, you're really fucking with some serious stuff here. And it just hits you emotionally. Like some of their quirks are fun and it makes for comedic moments. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is uncomfortable. And I think that's some of the power of this movie is how good those actors played those characters, how they brought you in to believe that they're all real. And then just when you had those kind of scenes where, you know, you're just like, fuck, this is really serious shit. And then you get on the boat and they're all having such a good time and you're rooting for them like this is great. Yes, get them out of the yeah, put them on the boat. Yes, go fishing. I love all these characters. A couple other things I wanted to say. A Clockwork Orange comes out in 1971 and then this comes out in 1975. And I don't think that's an accident. A Clockwork Orange is so weird, but it was very famous. And I don't know the history of movies where they had people with mental illnesses in there, but this was a different take on that. Now, I know that they started the idea of this movie way before, like in the 60s, and Kirk Douglas was supposed to be McMurphy, but it took so long to get all their shit together to be able to, I don't know if it was getting a place to be able to film it or getting casting or, production money, whatever. But I was thinking about that. Like, A Clockwork Orange was a very big deal as a movie, and it had to do with, this sort of subject matter. And then this one didn't take the weird take on it. It went with the ensemble take on it. And I think like I said, I don't think they're not interconnected. And I love what they did with this. It deserves every award it got. And like Matt's saying, it probably should have got some more. So, I'm glad you picked this, Dan. I could watch it and talk about it again. And one last thing, you put Scatman Crothers in a movie, I'm gonna like it. The Scatman.
Quick comment on Clockwork Orange. I was driving up this years and years ago. I was driving up to Wisconsin to see a friend, and I stopped by the library and found a Clockwork Orange, like the book, only audio, so CDs. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll start doing this. I'll start like listening to books as I travel. And I don't know if anybody's ever read A Clockwork Orange, but it's going to be a very hard read because of just their completely, alternate language, basically.
Yeah.
And it's even harder to listen to. So I got probably a good like 20 words out of an entire chapter, each chapter, and the entire time is like I'm trying to figure out what's going on, but it was rough. And so I picked my buddy up and I was like, I'm gonna play this for you for about 30 seconds. And he just looked at me like, what the hell are you listening to? I'm like, this really, really famous.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I think of every time I hear Clockwork Orange. But that was I also bring it up because I used to confuse these two movies. I used to confuse
Oh.
Clockwork Orange with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, without having seen them.
Yeah,
But
kind of makes sense if you haven't seen
All
them.
right. Yep. Yeah, a couple of you guys have talked about the cast. The thing with the cast was Jack Nicholson was a big star, and at the time of this movie, the rest of these guys were mostly unknowns.
Which is amazing. Look at those
Yeah, the
names.
director
It's
wanted to
amazing.
do that because he wanted a big star, so he wanted the other guys to like look up to him. He wanted to, create that situation where they looked up to him.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I mean, Yeah, we were talking about Danny DeVito last week, and yeah, this was, his film, major film debut. He was in the off-Broadway production of this in the 60s of One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest, because the book was written, I think, around 1961, something like that.
I wonder if his face hurt from smiling so much at the end of shooting those scenes. Nobody can smile that much and
I
be
know.
okay.
This is actually good proof why casting needs to be an Oscar category. And I never understood why. Because casting and stunt work are two things that just historically have not gotten any love from the Oscars. And I hear casting is coming up soon. And yes, I get Screen Actors Guild. They do best acting ensemble. I'm like, cool. Not exactly the same thing, but like something like this, yeah, this is proof why casting definitely matters, and you have to be careful with who you cast. So here's my
Mm.
plug for the Academy. Clearly you're listening to this. Uh, award award people for casting, or award for casting, and award for stunt work. Long overdue.
Fine, ladies and gentlemen, that you are.
Agreed.
Dan, one last thing. You bring up that the casting people wanted them to look up to McMurphy. I talked about the relationships and stuff, but the hierarchy within that room is a really important thing as that movie goes along. Like who feels like they're in charge and can tell other people what to do, and who pushes back is an important dynamic in that group. And I just think that's really well played as well.
So I just found looking at the Wikipedia plot for the movie, it describes Nurse Ratched as a cold, passive-aggressive behavior tyrant.
That's apparent.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good description. I never thought of it that way. All right, sorry.
No, it's fine. All right. Oh, Aaron is there. I was trying to look. Aaron's gone. Oh no, you're in the middle there. I see you now. All right, Aaron, you're up.
How could you miss me?
Just blend right in.
Man, a lot of you guys touched on all the good points. 2 hours and 14 minutes. I don't think there was 5 minutes wasted. There wasn't a lull. There wasn't, even in like the setting up for what's happening next, or we got to build to this a little bit. There was no boring parts. There was no parts that lost my attention. Like I grabbed my phone or whatever, where some of the other movies, yeah, you're watching for a while and you're like, I can be on my phone and have this on in the background and get what's happening. But, for this, didn't even reach for it. I've seen it once before, and the, two parts that I laughed out loud when the chief says, fruit stripes is his favorite or whatever. It wasn't juicy fruit, was it? Was it juicy fruit? It was juicy fruit. Juicy fruit, my favorite. And his, Nicholson's reaction is fucking, I laughed. I was like, and I knew it was coming. I had forgot it was coming, like I had seen it before, I wasn't like anticipating it, but it still hit me the same way. And then the same thing, and I had misremembered it. I thought the first time that they had gotten pulled to the other floor, and I knew like things weren't making sense to me with how I was remembering it. I thought something happened lobotomy wise that first time he got electrocuted, the electroshock treatment. And I was like, oh. And then I started to question if I remembered the movie. I was like, oh, maybe this isn't, but then towards the end, I was like, oh yeah, it's going to happen again. He's going to disappear. I did not remember the stories of him, beating up this guy or escaping, or, all the things that he did while he was up there healing. So that was just, I'm so glad I watched it again, because if somebody would have asked if I hadn't joined this group, and somebody would ask if you seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, yeah, talked about it, superficially, and that would have been it. But so glad I watched it again and remembered all the great parts that I had forgotten. And it's more feelings There isn't a ton of action. I mean, even on the basketball court when they're playing basketball, it's not a ton of action, but it's just you get the feeling of, put your hands up, put your hands up, put your hands up, and you're rooting for them, put your hands up, and then I think it's the second time. There's two different basketball games, right?
Yep.
Or is it? It's not the same one where the Chiefs running back and forth. That where he's trying to, because that's where he ends up on his shoulder. So anyway, wrong questions to ask. Already off on a tangent. So,
Well, this group doesn't like tangents at all.
Just from the, I try to stay off my tangents. Well, at least I'm not explaining 3 other movies to get to the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times,
but it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So Hilty earlier called this a drama. I get it, and like I didn't even look at. I hadn't even thought of how it was categorized. Like to me, and then maybe drama is, but this is to me. I see, and maybe it's because I've seen it before. More suspense. It's like they're laying that groundwork, and like I said, it might be because I had seen it before and I knew what was going to happen, that I knew what a bitch she was. Just, what a horrible person she was. And how everything they say, it's going to be used against you. It's going to be twisted. It's going to make you hurt. So to me, it was just that it was more of a feeling of suspense or even dread. A lot of times when the guys were screaming over the cigarettes, or even what was the other thing they were fighting over? The card game. And it's like, you just want to beg them to stop because she's going to use this against you. And not necessarily that she does, but just the worry that she was gonna. I definitely wouldn't call it a thriller. But either a suspense or a drama.
Seems to be an issue with Jack Nicholson movies.
Oh, and for real, his best movie, and it's probably because I've seen it recently, The Departed. Man, like he's
It was in
awesome
my
that.
mind too.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So I would probably say The Departed. I said Batman just because Brian didn't.
Yeah, I was shocked when Brian didn't say Batman.
Same.
I think everybody was.
I was like,
Way
did
to-
he just
way
say
to
as good
not
as it gets?
conform,
What
B.
just happened?
One of the other things that I never noticed before, and I guarantee I'd seen the movie, it'd probably be more recent in my mind. But when they took off and went out on the boat, like there's another movie that I think kind of did it. Did anybody else like get have a movie in mind? And there's probably several that, the therapist or the doctor or the intern or the, friend of someone visiting feels pity on a group of people and, takes them out for an adventure.
What about Bob?
Maybe what
I'm sailing.
the dream team with Michael Keaton. And they go to the ball game. To
And
me,
Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd's in
And
that
Christopher
also.
Lloyd's in that too. Didn't even realize that till I looked it up again to get the name of it, because I couldn't even think of the name of it. But I knew I'd seen a movie that had a similar kind of thing to it. And that made me feel good too. I loved the fishing scene. I thought the whole thing was great. I thought the movie was great. I do find it a little distracting. And I know when you go from either a set to an outdoor scene, somebody like Christopher Nolan or whatever, where I don't know if they use giant sound stages or green screens, there never seems to be a hiccup in or a change in film quality. And in these movies, it is what it is. But when they get outside and they're doing location shoots, it just seems like there's a degradation to the film quality. It's not the same.
It looks a little more grainy once you get outside.
Right. Yeah. It's more grainy, the cameras, and it all makes total sense. And I'm not arguing about it, but it's like, it always does pull away from the illusion of, where you're at. And like I said, I'm not complaining about it, but it just, it's just something I wanted to mention. So many themes in this movie, like and the one that I think, I don't know, I didn't read anybody's, like what the director or what the writer, the screenplay or the book or what they were trying to get across, what they were, but just and I don't know what you call it, the power dynamic of Nurse Ratched. And it's not pious, it's the like holier than thou. I know there's a word for it, righteousness, but she's
Self-righteous.
not. Where a person uses their power to inflict their morality in the worst way. That whole scene with Billy, where,
Oh, that's terrible.
I'm a good Christian and I know your mother and I have to tell her what you've done. And I don't think she believes she's evil, but she is fucking evil.
Yeah.
But she believes that she's doing it all for moral and just reasons. Like she has to. I owe it to your mother. She's a friend of mine. And but I want to say she gets off on it too, because she knows she has the power and she's got him twisting in her hand and, in himself. He can't even talk.
No, you're totally right, Aaron. That when she does the vote, she's like, "Yeah, you want to vote? Go ahead and vote." That shitty look on her face the entire time.
Yeah.
It adds to exactly what you're saying.
Yes, that's it. Well, it's the voting's closed or, whatever. Well, it's everybody on the war. It's that whole thing where, and there's teachers that do it. I'm sure there's, whatever. They're always going to win. They're going to set up parameters where a kid or a person thinks they have a chance of winning, and she always has not an ace up her sleeve, but she always knows how she's going to screw them over, no matter how hard they work or whatever. I don't know. And that's just that use of power to push morality that is even a twisted version of morality. It's very disturbing. I don't like her a lot.
Mhm.
And it's upsetting. Not just what she did with Billy and what with the voting on watching the baseball game. But I don't know what had happened before we get there, but the keeping the cigarettes and rationing the cigarettes, and
Right.
you bet your cigarettes, and now I have to hold on to them because you're going to run out. God, I just hate her so much. What was the last thing? I don't know. I wrote down kindness. I guess maybe it's just the simple where Jack McMurphy, and what a great name, McMurphy, for a main character, is the fights too much and fucks too much and is in jail and whatever. But he doesn't see anybody different. He doesn't pick on a single person. There's people who rub him the wrong way. And if there's a person you don't like, it's hard to get along with. But all the other guys he tries to work with. I think he's fair with them all the time. He never tries to screw them over. He's a kind person, even though he's seen as, and that's probably one of the other themes is, wolf in sheep's clothing, or don't judge a book by its cover. Just the fact that he just seems like a good guy. He might do some stupid shit morality wise, bringing in, I don't want to call them hookers, but they were probably hookers. One was his girlfriend, and hookers can have boyfriends.
Yeah, girlfriend.
Bringing them in and getting everybody wasted and getting the caretaker wasted and getting him definitely fired. Is that something a good guy does? No, but a decent guy, like, he didn't do it to hurt anybody, and anybody could have walked away. He didn't try to shame anybody into partying or whatever. So I don't
Well,
know.
and they reacted to it too, though. I mean, he kind of took them to a different level than they were going to be on their own, right? Like that whole fishing trip's all about that. Those guys, the look on their face while they're holding those fish when they come in and the whole fucking
Yeah.
town is there. They're like, look what we did. It's like, oh, you guys are mad? Why are you guys mad? I
Well,
they don't have those experiences if he doesn't push them in that direction. And that is a really good quality of that character.
Right. Or
and
maybe not even push him, but just give him the opportunity.
Yeah.
about like, these are people that are in a mental institution. Most of the world has already written them off. And he's in this scenario and he's like, no, these are all also human beings. And so, as far as, like you said, Aaron, him treating everybody equally and treating everybody fairly, there's really something to be said about a character, just a person that accepts people, flaws and all. And especially when those flaws are very stigmatized by, just the rest of society, because otherwise they're just sitting in there rotting while Nurse Ratched is just, breaking them down psychologically. So yeah.
Right. And him coming in and I don't know if anybody's there. They don't play like stereotypical mental disorders. I don't think, they were trying to go for, which nowadays, if they were to make a movie like this, there would be a clearly autistic person and there would be a clearly, person who has, been in an accident and their personality has changed due to that, whatever. There would be characters that
Schizophrenic.
most of us could identify with through other movies, television, people we know. And these guys just, I don't know what their direction was, but it was very good, bordering on perfect. I had forgotten Danny DeVito was in it. We talked about it last week. I remembered then like an image of him, but he was so much better than I remembered. And all, like you said, most of the time all he did was grin, but it was a perfect disconnected grin that some of us have seen, in teaching or therapy or, working with people. And it's like, I don't know if he worked with somebody or if he's just like, this is what I'm going to go with. And they're like, yeah, that's cool.
We always give the phrase happy idiot for people. He's the perfect happy idiot. They're playing 21 and he's like, hit me. It's not even your turn. Hit me. He's smiling and yelling, hit me the whole fucking time. It's great.
And they're yelling at him. They're mad. Hit me.
Right. You have 20. I'm not hitting you. Hit me.
You busted. I told you were going to bust. Hit me.
Hit me.
So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks for having me watch it again, Dan. Thought I remembered it. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I remembered it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I always liked the movie but I haven't watched it for a long time. And when I rewatched it this week, I was like, wow, I love this movie. All right. Bringing up the last here is Matt Smith. Let's get your take.
All right. I'm a little under the weather, so I apologize if my voice is more nasally
You
than
should.
usual. Yes, I should.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like I've seen this movie before, but maybe I've just seen enough scenes that I thought I saw it. But either way, I didn't remember much of it. Other than to Mike Wilden's point, the thing being thrown out the window because of The Simpsons, which is where I have all of my knowledge comes from The Simpsons, apparently. Yeah, no, I really liked this. I mentioned it before. I popped in and mentioned before. I think Brad Dourif got robbed. I have never seen the Sunshine Boys. I know George Burns is a legend. I can't imagine that performance was better than this one. And maybe I should go watch the movie before I make that judgment, but I just can't even imagine it. So
It's
um,
not. It's not. It's
that
not.
feels like an industry thing. Like it's George Burns, so he gets the nod or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, so where was I going with that? Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. Other than that, I think they should have swept the Oscars because he was that good. Yeah, I think um, a lot of it was because most of them were in or they were voluntarily in there, right? So I think a lot of this movie revolves around him like letting them know, like, hey, you can still go do stuff. You're not in here because like me, I'm in here because I did something stupid and I'm trying to work the system. You could walk out whenever you want. You're just afraid, like, but look, you went and fished and we play games. And so I think it's more about, I feel like it's more about that. I'd love to read the book, because I'd love to see sort of more of the, maybe some inner thoughts of some of these characters. But, um, yeah, I feel like the guy who played Harding, I feel like I know him from something, but I looked at his credits. He's in like nothing I've ever seen before.
Hmm.
He just, I don't know if he has that face. Like was he in Star Wars or was he in like some war movie I've seen before? It's kind of weird. Um, you guys already talked about it, Danny DeVito, Louise Fletcher, they did an excellent job. I thought the guy who played, is it Cheswick? Cheswick. I thought the guy who played Cheswick was great. I think Mike mentioned that too. Like he just like that character, you felt almost like pity for him, but then he kind of freaks out and then kind of like, yeah, you're rooting for him, and then you see him go in the room, you're like, oh crap, what are they gonna do to this guy? Um,
That was Tim, but thank you.
oh, well, well, close enough. Um, and then I wonder too, I don't know, it was the 70s, right? Was this also just sort of a commentary on how people were treated in these places? Like, oh, you don't want to get with the program? Well, we're gonna cut part of your brain out, and then you'll see, wasn't it one of Kennedy's sister, right? She was lobotomized at a young age in the a long time ago, and was it more of that and the chief character, right? Like, oh no, he doesn't talk, can't hear you, can't talk. Well, yes, he can. Nobody's just taking the time to actually try to get that out of him. They just assume, and he's a deeper character. So yeah, no, I really liked it. I took a deep dive on some of this stuff. I noticed that one of the producers was Michael Douglas, which I thought was weird. And I was like, oh, it must be a different Michael Douglas. That's probably a common name. Nope, it's Michael Douglas. And found out through my deep dive that he actually produced a 2020 TV series, a prequel for Nurse Ratched. And Nurse Ratched
Yeah.
was played by the lady who played Marsha Clark in
Sarah
the
Sarah
OJ.
Paulson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sarah Paulson, who played Marsha Clark, and I was like, wow, that's great. It's 8 episodes. It was on Netflix. I don't know if it's still something you can get, but
Is it just called Nurse Ratched or
I think it's just
um
called Ratchet.
yeah, I think it's just called
uh,
Ratchet. I had it up at some point, but I lost it. But yeah, I think it's just called Ratchet, and about how it's like from the 40s and how she got started in her job and stuff. So I thought that might be interesting to see a couple episodes of that and see if, I'm assuming what they're doing is setting up why she's so the way she is.
Cast iron bitch.
Yeah, right, right. Um,
Yeah, him and his dad had a strained relationship for a while because Kurt wanted to play McMurphy,
Right.
and
ah,
they told him he was too old, and so he felt that his son had a hand in, you know,
ah,
knocking him out of the movie.
gotcha. Yeah, I think for her, I think, and she got the award too, right?
did.
She got actress.
Yep.
For me, at first it was like I had heard Nurse Ratched in popular media, and it was a spoof. People had spoofed it, but I was like, okay, she's fine. But then I think it was the eyes for me. She would say things that sounded like she was a caring individual, but her eyes were dead. Like she did a great
Yeah.
job of just staring through, whether it was the camera or off camera, depending on the scene, and her eyes were just dead. Like, yeah, I don't mean anything I'm saying right now, but I'm gonna keep saying it because it keeps you guys quiet or it keeps you guys satisfied or whatever. Thought that was pretty good. So yeah, no, overall, I appreciate a lot of you guys have talked about a lot of the stuff already, so I won't I won't belabor the points at all. I just thought it was interesting about Michael Douglas and the prequel and Brad Dourif. That would be the other thing I talk about. Like I already said, I actually like that's the kind of performance he goes in that room and then he shows up and 1970s, the makeup, the blood, it's like, but I still felt like terrible for this man, right? Like that's the power of his performance is this little scared boy basically, and just being manipulated by this lady, and and I felt McMurphy's rage at that moment when he's choking her out because it's like, how could you do this? Like, this is your fault. So I think that's for me why I think he was the best performance. I mean, Nicholson was great in it, but I think Dourif stole the show. Um, and so anyway, so that's another thing. You guys were talking about the best Nicholson movies. This has got to be up there. It's pretty good. Um, I like Departed. I gotta say, and I'm only saying this because I think if you think about his impact on the movie for as little he was in it, is A Few Good
Oh,
Men.
yeah.
He was only in the movie for 17 minutes, and yet if you remember A Few Good Men, like what's the first thing you're gonna probably remember from A Few Good Men, right? You're gonna remember that courtroom scene. So I
Yeah.
would
You
put
can't
that up
handle the
there.
truth.
Yeah, I would put that up there. I don't know if it's his best ever, but as far as per minute of film and his impact on it, that's got to be in the discussion just because he was able to impact that movie. So anyway, yeah, great pick, Dan. Thanks for, again, like other people said, making me watch it again. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I've seen it, but it's been a while. So really enjoyed. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it as much as I did. So I appreciate it.
Matt,
All
real
right.
quick,
Yeah.
the guy who played Harding,
Mhm.
he had a run on the Bob Newhart show and also on Maude. So
Mm.
he was more of a TV presence. He was in movies as well, but I think that's where I remember from is seeing him in
Yeah, maybe he showed up on
reruns
my
of that kind of stuff.
Saturday morning reruns or whatever, after school reruns. Yeah. Yeah, and now I'm like out of spite, I want to go watch the Sunshine Boys just to confirm that I am correct and that the Academy Award committee was wrong in 1976 or whatever. And how
Watching a movie out of spite is a good way to enjoy it.
right? Right?
Anything out of
And then
spite. I mean, that's you're already half of a Larson. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
oh man, going down the rabbit hole now. And it is listed, whoever Aaron was talking about it, as a psychological drama, my friend. It's a psychological drama.
Yeah.
And how funny that 1 year removed from Chinatown, we're still arguing about what type of movie it could be.
I'm so mad that we don't have that one for the podcast. I lost the audio on that because there's a good argument between us about Dan's pick for Chinatown and genre.
The thriller category. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to bring this up after, but I sent you guys way too late. I sent you guys a link to the video of Nicholson winning his Oscar for Chinatown. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, but he's working on this movie. And so he does his acceptance speech for his Oscar for Chinatown in the asylum, like in the Oregon State Hospital. And all of the actors are back there and they're just acting like they're nuts. One guy runs by naked. Um, what's his name again? Billy, Brad Dourif. He's like swinging off the ceiling in the background. And is watch that clip. It's really fun. And if you guys, if people are listening to this podcast, go watch the acceptance speech for Chinatown. It's really, really funny.
So back then they did an acceptance speech, like a remote acceptance speech for him.
Yeah, they actually three different actors had to do that day because they were off filming in different places. And
I didn't think that started till like the 90s where they
yeah,
would cut away to
1970.
somebody who couldn't be here tonight.
Yeah,
They'd always
1974,
have
75.
accepting for.
Right.
But before we
Um,
move on,
I think it was
Matt brought up, and I think it brings up, to me, it's the sinisterness of Nurse Ratched, where she's saying the right things with the dead eyes. Like she's saying all the
Yes.
moral, helpful, right things. And as she's looking like into the camera, just off camera, it's very upsetting. Yeah.
and
she
to
was
see
looking
her
at us.
when he commits suicide, she's still trying to maintain
and
control.
Right.
she's emotionless. It doesn't even look like it affects her that much. Like
Right.
she's It's another day at the
Immediately,
office.
she's like, "All right, everybody, let's go back to our normal routine."
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
her answer.
Right.
Like,
And
jeez.
I I see it more of like, yes, it's control, but I think it's like damage control. And, but this is what happened, and this is why it happened. And we can explain this because,
There will be a spin on it. Yep. Yep.
right. It's just, oh, and she's always, like I said, she knows the moral things. She knows what she can get away with. She knows, I don't know, just the right, almost like a lawyer or whatever. She says the words that can't get her in trouble, even
Yeah.
though she's using them in the
'Cause the
worst way possible.
the
Yeah,
whole deck is stacked on her side, and so
for
she
sure.
plays that really well. And I agree with Matt. When Billy kills himself, I just I'm watching him choke her. Like, I hope that bitch dies.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
I'm all for it because he's the baby deer. Like, he's the
Right.
worst one to have that happen to in that group.
And
And
McMurphy knows that. He
Yes.
knows that you've killed the best of us,
right.
I
Who
think it
Yeah,
was that.
the
who
last
just had his best moment.
Right.
Like, we
Yes. I was
just
going to bring
got
that
him
up
to
too.
have a breakthrough, and now it's all lost.
Right. He's feeling the best he's ever, and not just because it was sex, but like he's feeling like, you know, a man and part of society, and
They were cheering for him, and
they're
Right.
all applauding him.
Yeah.
a hero, and she just puts a cigarette out in his eye.
Yep.
I think it was the BAFTA awards, by the way, Tim. I don't think it was actually the Oscars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I just looked that up because I had this thing ready to say, and I'm like, Tim just said that he did the Oscar. Yeah, it was the Golden Globe that he won,
Okay.
that he gave the speech for.
Which is just as good as an Oscar.
Yeah, thank you for the correction.
Same-
Watch the thing
same
anyway
thing.
because it's fucking fantastic.
Same thing. Also,
Yeah,
before,
Details
because
are not important. Accuracy is not important to me when I'm telling one.
Yeah.
before we move on,
True.
I just wanted to say I also looked up, I guess, an uncredited role. Angelica Houston shows up in an uncredited role. She's on
That makes sense.
the bridge or whatever when they're sailing by. She's one of the crowd. She's one of the girls. So I thought that was just random,
That's cool.
funny knowledge.
Okay.
Uncredited role.
They already knew each other at this point, right? Nicholson and her.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I'll look that
They
up. Keep
were-
talking.
They were either dating or about to start dating, I believe.
Okay.
Probably why she's in the movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say that this was the third year in a row that Nicholson was nominated for a Best Actor for an Academy Award, but he lost the other two. He lost Chinatown, and he lost The Last Detail the year before that, before he won this one.
Oh, he didn't win an Oscar for Chinatown. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. He did not.
Oh, I thought I was,
He was nominated.
98% sure that he won
Good.
for Chinatown.
Well, if you read the title of the YouTube video that you sent out, Tim, it says winning the Oscar for Chinatown.
Yeah.
Well,
Which
there
is
you go.
wrong. Which is wrong.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's what could confuse him.
Ah.
Jack Nicholson accepts his word. Yeah. Oh, so
Okay.
See?
All right.
Maybe you're wrong, Dan. Maybe you're wrong.
I just looked it up. Damn it.
I,
That's it.
it pains me to help Tim out.
People said a
I mean,
bunch
Yeah.
of words.
I
see.
As soon as you start talking with that tone, Brian, I was like, this is going to go bad for me.
Ah,
Well, Tim, you actually brought up earlier the discussion of the title.
Yeah.
And I looked, Googled what does it mean, and
Mhm.
one of them is someone who's gone insane or the main title. What that means is One Flew Over the
Okay.
Cuckoo's Nest. But then it also says the novel's title though may refer to free thinkers who refuse to give up their power and individuality.
Okay.
So if you looked at it that way, then it's got to be
McMurphy.
Jack Nicholson. Yeah,
Yeah.
R.P. McMurphy.
Yeah, that's a good argument too. Since he doesn't give that up, but he kind of loses the power struggle in the end, right? But the
Well,
chief
you get
wins.
lobotomized. Yeah.
Yeah, the chief actually wins the long game on that, and that's how I've always looked at it. But I think that's a good argument too.
All right. And speaking of uncredited roles, Ernie Hartwell was the voice on the baseball game that they were listening to on the
Oh,
radio.
that's great. I did not know that.
Nice.
For you Tiger fans out there.
Let the guys watch the game. Jeez. So cruel.
Matt had also brought up, I believe it was Matt, the Kennedy, who was lobotomized. I had just seen a thing last week, a little video clip, and it was actually focusing on a boy who, when he was 12 or 13, he's in his 60s now, but was lobotomized without him knowing. Like his parents had him lobotomized because he was a handful. And he's one of the only ones who, like, he doesn't remember it. And he's had a, he got married. He's had a, a full functioning life. He found out, in the 80s maybe that it happened. But it was the same doctor. It was who they called Dr. Lobotomy, that did, the Kennedy girl, who it went horribly wrong with her. Many died shortly after being lobotomized. Most, or a handful were catatonic. But the what do you want to say? The thing that made it revolutionary at the time or whatever was just it took away the challenging personality of usually these young people. So it's just, what a horrible thing. And back then, or in this case, I get with in the movie where, having the scars on the head where they actually opened them up and scrambled the frontal lobe, they were all through the eyes. They pierce right through the eye socket, and so you'd end up with some black eyes, for a couple weeks. But after that, there was like no marks that had ever happened. It's pretty terrifying too, how whatever easy that is, or how it could be done, how quickly your freedom could be taken away by, say, screwing around and not sweeping the floor in the prison, and pretending you're crazy, and one step, two step, three step, all of a sudden, you've got an unscrupulous doctor at a mental hospital that you're just trying to dick around in, and you're lobotomized and you don't even know you want to leave anymore. So
that's the original version of fuck around and find out.
Exactly. Well, but you never really find out because you don't ever remember. You're like, no, I dig it here.
Yeah. Music's nice.
Fuck around and it's cool.
All right. Dan, you got anything else for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
I do not. That was it.
All right. Well, then we move on to pick number 197. And as we have done a little switcheroo here, this will be Mike Wilden's pick. And our theme again this time around is movies that we should have probably seen as a movie group. And so, Mike, what's your pick?
Mike's got a story to tell, doesn't tell a story well.
I am gonna kick the fucking shit out of you, Brian.
Oh
I've
man.
been holding on to that all night. A little crossover.
No, no worries.
True
Just
style.
it's just it's just past childhood trauma you're bringing
That's right.
up. No big
Stop it
deal.
on an emotional scar. That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
Make
It's
a
all good.
podcast, they said, Mike. It'll be great, they said, Mike.
Yeah.
When you guys were
Yeah,
talking
that was
about
a great
like the
idea, right?
Larson, when you guys were talking about the Larson Spite, it's like on the spice shelf. It's like, nutmeg, spite,
Yeah.
oregano, more
Yeah.
spite.
Yeah. And you have to refill it frequently. Yeah.
Yeah. That was well placed, Brian. I'm still gonna kick your ass, but that was well placed. So when I was in college, I got on a kick of reading books that were made into like hit movies. One of which was like Silence of the Lambs. I'd already seen Jurassic Park a million times, but I went back and read that book as well. But I had a habit of reading a book and then watching the movie, and it was a fun experience. So the one that I think helped me the most is the one that we're gonna watch. And like, there's any movie that we should have watched as a movie group right now, that we haven't yet. How have we not watched The Godfather? So that's what we're gonna do. Godfather, we're gonna say part 1. And yeah, I know it's a long one, but I'm looking forward to the discussion on this. And
I'm sorry,
I'll just say that
I've never heard of that. What's that movie about?
The One.
It's a religious movie.
Cool.
Yeah. No, the book gave me, I'm glad I read the book first, because it actually gave me a lot better understanding of the movie, and I think I appreciated it more because I read it first. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that conversation next week. So,
Great.
The Godfather.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, The Godfather. Talk about that next week.
That'll do it for this episode of the BTB Movie Club podcast. Thank you as always for listening. We know we enjoyed ourselves. We hope you did too. Have yourselves a great week. We are partnered with the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.